The shooting of the two police officers outside the New Hope City Council meeting has city leaders taking a look at emergency plans. We'll talk about what's being done here in Maplewood.
Have you ever imagined yourself in an active shooting scenario? It's difficult, but we'll tell you why thinking ahead could save your life.
Hello, I'm Lon Bakey.
And I'm Carrie Crotty. Welcome to your police report. A gunman began shooting outside a New Hope City Council meeting in January. He was eventually killed, but not before shooting and injuring two police officers.
The incident has departments across the state reviewing their emergency procedures. Take a look.
After a gunman opened fire outside a New Hope City Council meeting in January, shooting two police officers,
Get down.
local law enforcement isn't taking any chances when it comes to safety.
These things happen quite infrequently, but when they happen, they can often be very deadly and highly violent.
Maplewood Police Chief Paul Schnell says the city has an emergency plan in place for council meetings. It addresses everything from the weather to an active shooter.
There is a plan. We hope and anticipate that we'll never have to use it, but nonetheless, it's critical that we're prepared.
Schnell says a police officer will always be present at council meetings, a precaution taken by some but not all cities. Officer Eric Standard is a firearms instructor for the YPR Lake Police Department. He says the New Hope shooting had officers talking.
It was the number one topic the next morning at our roll call and trying to find out details about it. And then we do, what if scenarios amongst ourselves. So it definitely sets the wheels turning.
The department actively trains for active shooter scenarios, and Standard says in any drill, setting up an immediate go plan is key.
Going back to pre-Columbine here, there was never really any kind of an immediate go plan. It was always something that was staged and then planned for and then dealt with. Well, we can't afford to do that anymore just because you gotta save people's lives.
Although most officers never use their guns in their career, it's important for police to be prepared. And for the average citizen, both Schnell and Standard agree. Although rare, people should plan for an active shooting situation.
People who don't move during armed encounters, we have a name for that, we call them casualties.
According to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, there have been 160 active shootings in the U.S. between 2000 and 2013, resulting in over 1,000 casualties and nearly 500 deaths. The three highest include Aurora, Colorado, Virginia Tech, and Fort Hood. In Minnesota, 11 people were killed in two school shootings and 6 in the workplace. Experts say the three things you should do are run, hide, and if you can't do either, fight back.
If there is no other options, this becomes the option of last resort, and that is to engage the person in a way that increases the likelihood of survival.
We want to stress that the odds of any one of us being involved is very low. And we don't want to scare people, but it's always better to plan ahead.
College campuses make security a priority, and since schools account for the second largest casualty location, they need to be proactive.
Mark Hoper is the Director of Public Safety for Century College, and he joins us today to talk about campus safety.
Welcome to the
Mark.
show.
Thank you.
How many students are there on campus?
The college serves approximately 15,000 students a year. Plus, we have Northeast Metro Intermediate School District on the campus that has about 900 students. So that can put over 2,000 students on campus at any time during our peak hours.
Wow.
Now, I did a little research on your crime stats, and they seem to be pretty low, and thankfully there hasn't really been any assaults. How do you do that?
Well, fortunately, we have very low crime rates, and rarely do we have something serious.
What are the general safety services that you provide to students and your staff?
Well, we have a full-time security staff that provides basic needs of safety, handling lost and found, respond to medical emergencies, any security situation. and we even do jump starts on cold days like today.
Nice.
But most importantly, the campus has a very comprehensive approach to security. Our faculty and staff are all engaged when it comes to matters of safety and security.
Now you have something called Star Alert, is that right? What is that?
Okay, Star Alert is one of the ways we can communicate emergency messages to our students and faculty and community. It basically will send out text messaging or emails, or both, for anybody who signs up for that service.
Now, do you have an emergency action plan for an active shooter? And if so, how is it communicated and or practiced with the students and staff?
We have a lot of comprehensive emergency plans, including an active shooter. We exercise them with a drill every semester. Plus, prior to the drill, we send out the procedures and information to the students and employees so they're aware of what to do in such situations.
Now, active shooter is a pretty serious situation. I'm assuming the school takes that pretty seriously.
We have to accept that a shooter situation can happen anywhere. But more importantly, besides the good planning, is being proactive. We have a behavioral assessment team, and the goal of that team is to identify individuals that are in distress and try to get them services and resources they need to be successful before it becomes a critical incident.
Wow. All right. Well, how closely do you coordinate with local law enforcement?
Well, it's a little complex on the campus because we sit in 2 counties and 2 cities divided by a state highway. But we work closely with both the YPR and Washington County folks. And in fact, in 2012, we had a major exercise on our campus where all the agencies that support the campus in an active shooter situation came together and practiced what we would actually have to do should such situation occur on the campus.
Very good, very good.
Now, once again, officers and you can only do so much for the safety of students. I'm assuming there's something that you can advise the students to keep themselves safe.
The most important thing is for the community to be actively involved. I mean, if you see something suspicious, tell somebody. If you're aware of somebody that's having problems and distress, let somebody know so we can get them the help and resources before it becomes a critical incident.
Very
Good
good.
advice.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back,
We'll tell you how an internationally recognized lab here in the Twin Cities is helping police fight crime.
Any questions?
No.
You know.
We're not magicians, we can't read your mind.
We need your questions, each and every kind. Will this react with my other medicine?
Hey, what are all these tests even for?
Questions are the answer.
the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension Calibration Laboratory is the first lab in the Midwest to achieve international accreditation.
The labs, located in St. Paul and another in Bemidji, provide many resources to help solve crimes, including breath testing instruments used by law enforcement throughout the state.
If history is a predictor of future, then yes, we are going to continue to see an increase in the caseload that we have to deal with on a regular basis.
Catherine Knudsen, Director of Forensic Science Services at the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, began working for the agency in 1999. It was around then DNA analysis was becoming a big deal due to new technology called PCR. Instead of needing large amounts of blood, for example, blood stains smaller than a pinprick could be analyzed for DNA.
But we could now look at cigarette butts, who was smoking them. You can do wearer DNA, who was wearing a ball cap or a ski mask that's been discarded at a burglary. We can now swab guns and see who's been handling them. So As the technology advanced, it essentially increased exponentially the amount of evidence that started coming in the door.
So much new evidence was coming through the door that caseloads increased by 180%. The BCA responded by applying new technologies, hiring additional scientists, and streamlining evidence. In addition to violent crimes like sexual assaults and homicide, 1/3 of the cases processed for DNA in the lab are property crimes. The BCA's calibration lab, also known as the breath testing section, is separate from the testing lab. It calibrates and deploys instruments used across the state by law enforcement agencies to obtain breath alcohol concentrations. These are different from the portable breath testing devices used in the field, and a certified operator, also trained by the BCA, administers the test at the police department. It's the official measure, and the accuracy is imperative in court cases.
And if you're off by a significant amount or even a small amount, that could have some major consequences for the individual who is being accused of driving under the influence.
The breath testing lab is the first in the Midwest and one of only 16 in the nation to achieve international accreditation. More than 200 law enforcement agencies across the state use their instruments.
What it means to us is that our customers and those individuals who rely upon our results can be rest assured that the results that come out of our laboratory are accurate and reliable.
If you'd like to learn more about the services provided by the BCA, log on to their website.
There were many ads during the Super Bowl, but one that appeared to make a big impact was a commercial about domestic violence.
911, operator 901. Where's the emergency?
127 Brynmere.
Okay, what's going on there?
I'd like to order a pizza for delivery.
Ma'am, you've reached 911. This is an emergency line.
Large with half pepperoni, half mushroom.
You know you've called 911. This is an emergency
Do you
line.
know how long it'll be?
Okay, ma'am, is everything okay over there? Do you have an emergency or not?
Yes.
And you're unable to talk because...
Right.
Is there someone in the room with you? Just say yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like I have an officer about a mile from your location. Are there any weapons in your house?
No.
Can you stay on the phone with me?
No. See you soon. Thank you.
Tubman Services in Maplewood and the Maplewood Police Department are partners in working to end domestic violence. And Katie McNaughton from Tubman now joins us. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. There was an ad during the Super Bowl about domestic violence that kind of raised a lot of discussion. Can you tell me how that went and if it kind of raised the topic discussion a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it was a very powerful ad, and it definitely, brought some awareness to the topic of domestic violence. And that's the first step, is the awareness and just getting people to talk about it, being able to support victims, knowing about resources, where to guide them, to point them in the right direction to get some help. So it's a very powerful ad that brought a lot of awareness to a lot of viewers.
I agree.
Very good. Well, people have misconceptions about domestic violence. What does it look like, and who are the victims?
I think for most people, when you think of domestic violence, you think of the physical aspect of it, the hitting, punching, kicking. With domestic violence, there's also verbal abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, many other factors that come into that than just the assault piece that people think of. And anybody can be a victim, any age, any gender, any race, any religion. It affects everybody.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Tubman and the services that it provides to victims?
Yes, at Tubman, we have shelter services, counseling services, therapy, chemical dependency, mental health, legal services. We have support groups. We work a lot with the youth and adolescents in the high schools. So we have online resources, 24-hour crisis lines, a variety of services that you can check out on the website as well, too.
Can you tell us a little bit about your work as a legal advocate?
As a legal advocate, it's my job to work with the victims throughout the court process. So the initial contact is first with law enforcement. Law enforcement reaches out to Tubman to let us know when there's been a domestic assault that has occurred or a domestic assault related incident like a violation of a no contact order or an order for protection. We make contact with the victims to explain to them the court process, talk with them about safety planning, just kind of be a voice and an advocate for them throughout the court process with the law enforcement and prosecutors.
Now, I know the Maplewood Police Department and Tubman have a pretty close relationship. Can you tell me how that benefits the victims?
It benefits the victims and just having the resources out there for law enforcement to know that, hey, there's going to be a Tubman advocate that's going to call you, talk with you about the next steps. They know about the shelter services, counseling, whatever help that we can provide them with to make this incident that's happened as smooth and be able to transition into the next step and being safe.
And how are you guys working with the school district?
We are going out to the schools. We go out to District 622. Also, that's kind of a new project that we have working on right now. We also reach out to Hennepin County, Washington County, and Ramsey County schools. We have workers that go out and talk with the young adults about healthy relationships, signs of what to look for in unhealthy relationships versus healthy relationships, just to kind of educate them and make them aware for future relationship and what should be healthy and safe for them.
Now, I know we do a lot with domestic violence and you do too. There's only so much that the two of us can do. What can society do to help prevent domestic violence?
I think it's just, having a conversation is the first step and just the awareness. And so it's just talking to your peers, your friends, your family members, and just learning about the resources that are out there. It's just about having a conversation. Most people don't want to talk about the issue. With domestic violence, they think it's a very private issue. And so we need to make it more of a public conversation so that people know that it exists and that it exists with everyone and that where you can go to get the resources to guide you in a safe direction.
All right, well, that's great information. Thank you very much, Katie, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Do you know the biggest threat when it comes to poison in your home? You may be surprised.
Stay tuned to find out.
Welcome home, man.
January 2015 was one of the safest months on Minnesota roads in more than 30 years. Unfortunately, February was not. By February 10th, 12 people were killed in car crashes and 1 pedestrian was killed.
Winter isn't over yet, so people need to slow down. Speed contributes to 1 in 5 deaths as well as drunk driving. Distracted driving accounts for 1 in 4 deaths, and lack of seatbelt use accounts for about half of motorists killed.
So please pay attention, drive sober, and wear your seatbelt. More than 2 million poisonings are reported in the United States each year, and more than 90% occur in your home.
In recognition of Poison Prevention Week, which occurs this month, here's what you need to know.
It's kind of like SpongeBob. There's an episode where all he knows is fine dining and breathing. All we know is basically breathing and toxicology.
Educational Director for the Hennepin Regional Poison Center, Kirk Hughes, has nearly 20 years' experience as a firefighter and EMT and understands the unique challenges first responders face when dealing with exposure calls.
I'd be on a rig and we'd be responding as a first responder to a kid who drank bleach or ate something, and we're pretty clueless. We're like, oh, we're supposed to be the experts and calm everybody, but it's like ABCs is all we could do, So we jump off and act all, confident and such, and I had no idea that I could call the Poison Center.
Hughes teaches firefighters, police, doctors, and clinicians in toxicology, which he says is an ever-changing field.
What a lot of people don't know is about 3/4 of the clinicians that are in an emergency department, when somebody comes in with a toxic exposure, they go in the back room and they call us. We're considered to be the experts.
In 2013, the center, which serves Minnesota and the Dakotas, received 51,000 calls from Minnesota residents alone. Most calls are related to hazardous exposures in the home, but can range from insect bites to food poisoning. And because of the service, most calls keep people out of emergency rooms.
But the real strength of our service is that 92% of those tens of thousands of calls that we get that originate from the home can be safely kept at home, which saves the whole healthcare system literally millions of dollars.
In 2010, Hughes says the Poison Service saved $23.3 million in healthcare costs. 47% of the calls to the center involve children under 6. Although most toxic chemicals aren't harmful in small doses, just one swallow of windshield washer fluid can be fatal if left untreated. Hughes says most serious outcomes with children happen when they're visiting grandparents. He reminds them to lock up their pill minders, which look like candy to kids, during visits.
So Easter's coming up right after Poison Prevention Week, and we want to make sure that the visiting grandparents or the ones being visited keep their medications away, safe, locked up, so that we don't have to get the call and say they got to go in, because it's going to ruin everybody's holiday.
Hughes says the center is also a great service for seniors who have questions about medications. The center, which staffs 28 people, is confidential, takes calls 24/7, and is free.
For more information, log on to poisonprevention.org. And to check us out online, go to gtn.org. Like us on Facebook pages, both Your Police Report and the Maplewood Police Department.
You know, Lon has been known to rock the mic, but I have to say, I'm not sure he can compete with this next singer.
Stop. Thanks for checking us out on this edition of Your Police Report. When you check us out on Facebook page, make sure you leave a comment for Carrie letting her know that you disagree. See you next time.